Okay. On this next one, we're going to use these polynomial equations that have a variable and use synthetic division to figure out what it is. First thing, if it gives me a factor of x minus 5, that means x equals 5. That's a root of 5. Always switch the sign when it's coming out of a factor. Coefficients are 1, 4, -3, and c. Go ahead and bring down your 1. And then multiply the number on the bottom by that number in the box, which is 5. So that's a 5. Add makes a 9. Multiply makes a 45. Add makes a 42. These numbers are getting a little bit big. And now they just became a big because that's a 210 when I multiply 5 times 42. And then for your last step, we do add c and 210. They aren't like terms, so it's just a c plus 210. And that looks a little bit weird, but that is your remainder. Now, if you know that x minus 5 is a factor, I know that remainder must equal 0. That's one of the things we mentioned in the last video, that if something was a factor, it had to give you a remainder of 0. So at this point, I can say, well, how am I going to solve that? I'm going to subtract 210 from both sides. And after I subtract 210 from both sides, I'm going to get a final answer of c equals -210. So that is how you can solve a variable using synthetic division and some information about a factor. The next one looks different, but it's actually going to be very similar because in this one, we're still going to be using synthetic division, but this time it gives you a point. So you might try it on your own, but I'll work it through you. So the first thing I have to decide is what x is, and it is -2. I use the x value from my point because one thing we should have learned is the x value from my point is a possible root or a possible 0 of the graph. I did not have to switch the signs because it didn't give me a factor. This is an actual x value. It's not a value in a factor. So my coefficients are 1x to the 4th. There's 4x cubes. Don't forget to fill in the 0 because there are no x squareds, 2 x's, and then k for my plane number. Now I'm going to bring down my 1, and then I'm going to multiply that by a -2. Is -2, add is 2, multiply again is -4, add is -4, multiply again is 8, add is 10, multiply again is -20, and add is k minus 20. So at this point, I know my remainder is k minus 20, but I know that that remainder should be equal to 10 because another thing we talked about in the last video is if I divide out the x-coordinate, the remainder should give me the y-coordinate. If it's 0, that means it's an x-intercept right on the, and it helps me figure out factors, but if it's any other number, I still know the point of this graph is -210, only if that remainder of k minus 20 is equal to 10. At this point, I need to solve, so what I'm going to do is add 20 to both sides, and you end up with a k equals 30. So on the first example, we set it equal to 0 because it was a factor. On this case, it was a different y value, so we set it equal to the y value provided, and we're able to solve it in both cases.